Okay, hello, my friends. Here are a number of big stories for you. I have about five of them. So, North Korea has been the hottest topic for some time, and Ukrainian military is now actually learning Korean language in order to interrogate DPRK POWs, according to operator Starsky. And the focus on North Korea has just been phenomenal. In fact, China is now looking at North Korea. North Korea's deployment of troops to Russia is a tough balancing act for China and could become a strategic headache for Beijing. Here's the article in Radio Free Europe. View from Beijing. The reports signal deepening military ties that have been building for the last year between Russia and North Korea, a development that has been met with muted response from China, with foreign ministry saying last week that it was, quote, not aware of the relevant situation, unquote. They were aware. They just didn't have anything to say yet. Beijing has long been Pyongyang's most important ally, providing trade, diplomatic support, and military aid to Kim Jong-un. They've been really more in China's sphere of influence than in Russia's sphere of influence, and that's shifting now. China and North Korea's mutual aid and cooperation treaty from 1961 is the only existing defense treaty that China has with any country. But Beijing has also been frustrated with Pyongyang and the instability that it brings, particularly with its nuclear weapons program and threats to annihilate South Korea, which, of course, China doesn't want to happen right on its border as well. Pyongyang is injecting that same style of unpredictability into Ukraine, where the deployment of its troops risks a wider escalation that could start to play out in both Europe and Asia. While China is supporting Russia indirectly in its war effort, North Korea's involvement is a wild card and something of a strategic headache for Beijing. North Korea's closer relationship with Moscow could spell less Chinese influence over Pyongyang, and the involvement of North Korean troops would further strengthen Putin's partnership with Kim. Two more paragraphs. South Korea said that it's now considering upgrading its support for Ukraine from non-lethal aid to defensive and perhaps even offensive weapons. And of course, that's not good for China. China doesn't want that to happen. None of this is good for Beijing. Not only does the development weaken its narrative that China is a force for peace in contrast to the United States, but it also undermines its talking points that Western countries should stay out of Asia because now the Indo-Pacific is actually inserting itself into Europe. So, yeah, it's a big headache for China as well. But, of course, we're talking about concern. We're not actually doing anything about it. The U.S. is pressing China to leverage its relationship with North Korea to pull back troops sent to Russia. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan directed officials to engage China and organize international efforts to convey concern. We're very concerned over North Korea's involvement. Here we go again. Biden stated that Ukrainian forces should strike North Korean troops if they enter Ukrainian territory. But they're in Kursk, they're in Russian territory, and killing Ukrainians there is perfectly acceptable. Is that how that works? Commenting on the reports of North Korean troops in Russia's Kursk region, Biden said, quote, "I am concerned about this." Okay. Here he's deeply concerned Ukraine should strike back if North Korean troops enter Ukrainian territory. When asked about North Korean troops in the Kursk region, he reiterated that he's deeply concerned about it. But again, what's that? I mean, that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? The U.S. president expressed concern about Georgia as well and their retreat from democracy. But expressing concern used to mean something and diplomatically move mountains, and it's not anymore. And I think they just haven't caught on to the idea that they have to do more than just express concern. Georgia's October 26 parliamentary elections were marred by numerous recorded abuses of administrative resources, as well as voter intimidation and coercion. Georgian citizens have the right to peacefully express their views on the conduct of these elections, which independent international and domestic observers did not call free and fair, Biden said in this statement. So he's concerned about what's going on in Georgia as well. Meanwhile, Zelensky's concerned in his own way, but he's got a real reason to be concerned. Let's listen to what he has to say. President Zelenskyy on Tomahawk missiles. Now, this is supposed to be part of the victory plan. If we have these weapons, then it's a deterrent. If you do this, then we have this to do that. It wasn't bought by the Western partners, and it was called an escalation. Listen to this.
Full-scale war. There are prevention things of so many leaders in the world, so many strong economies, so many strong countries, a lot of prevention steps. When I asked them in the victory plan to give me the package of long distance weapon, and we will use it only if Russia will not stop the war and will not stop continuing escalation, I said, this is a prevention method. They said to me, this is escalation. When a lot of countries...
Okay, so did you catch that? So he asked, can I have these missiles that would be able to do this thing? And we won't use it unless Russia doesn't stop the war. And if Russia doesn't stop the war, then we... And he said, we won't do this because it's escalation. Wow. Now, it gets even worse than that. Listen to this.
Began to support victory plan. You see what's going on now in media. They said that Ukraine wants or wanted a lot of missiles like Tomahawks and etc. But it was confidential information between Ukraine and White House. How to understand these messages? So it means between partners there is no any confidential things.
So there's no confidentiality between partners, is what he's saying, because that confidential information leaked out. Now he's also upset about this. Listen to this. This is even worse.
If you've got 10% from all the package been even voted already, you know, that it's not funny, but it's you know.
Okay, Ukraine has only received 10% of the aid package approved by the U.S. Congress in 2024. It's not funny. Like, this is... So if anybody had a reason to be concerned, this would be Zelenskyy. Poland is unable to maintain previous levels of military aid to Ukraine, says Duda. Polish President Duda acknowledged that Poland's depleted capacity for military aid may have influenced Ukraine's recent diplomatic positioning, because they're really... Like, they're even talking about, like, we'll stop hitting your energy if you stop hitting our energy, like, behind the scenes. That might be part of it. Jane Kiev, now this is just commentary, but it's an interesting commentary. Seems like the EU has decided to fight a coalition of Russia, Iran, North Korea, all enemies of democracy themselves in the EU, rather than just give Ukraine what they ask for. You can do it this way or you can do it that way. And that way is going to be a lot more expensive. Okay, Sergei Simuleny. I do not believe anymore that, and here we're talking about Olaf Scholz, is a coward or stupid. I think he willingly helps Russia and plays against the Ukrainians. Now, again, that might be a little bit too harsh, but it feels like that's what's going on, like what Biden's slow walking and what Scholz is doing and things along those lines. And then you put that in the context of this. Andrew Perpetua, who does these daily updates about all the not casualties, but the equipment, the tanks, the trucks, all those that are destroyed. The wounds that I've seen inflicted in Ukrainian civilians in the past day were so horrific that it's scarring to even have seen them. They are not normal injuries like cuts to legs or puncture wounds to the chest. They're horrific gore, and I feel so bad for people. That's the context in which we're slow walking this aid. Okay, I'm going to skip over that and just talk about the U.S. election. It's 1 week away. Actually, this time next week, we'll be done with the election. I hope. Okay, now, Trump posted this, and I know you're going to say, why are you talking about Trump? Because he could very well become president. I'm going to talk about the whole context here. I'm not promoting Trump. That's not the point. While I'm running a campaign of positive solutions to save America, Kamala Harris is running a campaign of hate. Now, I read that and I almost choked. He legitimately said that. Now, I get what he's saying. He's saying that she's talking about calling him a fascist and all this other stuff, but you know what you're talking about too, like the things that come out of your mouth as well in your campaign. So it's flowing both ways and you're just as guilty. So, okay, she spent all week comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. So that's not cool, but you ought to turn it down as well. Now, on top of everything, Joe Biden calls our supporters garbage. Now, what's he talking about here? Well, this is a CNN article. Yeah, Biden may have handed Trump a big assist with his garbage gaffe. Okay, so Biden mentioned Puerto Rico slandered as a, quote, floating island of garbage. Now, this was in a Trump campaign event at Madison Square Garden. A comedian called Puerto Rico, which is a territory of the United States, a floating island of garbage. Not a smart idea. This was completely should never have happened, right? I mean, that's just dopey. Now, I guess a comedian thought he was being a comedian and somehow thought that was funny. Still no justification for that sort of thing. And then just the other day, the speaker, this is Biden talking now, and then just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state in Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people, Biden said. And then he said this, and this was just not a smart thing for a politician to say about the other side's supporters. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. No, you talk about the candidate, you don't talk about the candidate's supporters. That's just all bad. And so, yeah, it's the only upside here is that Biden is not the candidate, because that would have been like almost a sinking kind of event. Julia Timoshenko says, the more I try to follow U.S. elections, the more I feel like I'm losing my mind. I get it. I mean, I'm an American and I deeply understand what's going on, and I feel that way. So when I look at the predicted markets, again, we're a week away. The predicted markets are breaking against Kamala. The Electoral College margin, 27 to 15. That's bad. That breaks against her. The 2024 presidential election winner, it's 59 to 48 for Trump. That's bad for Kamala. Which presidency party wins the presidency? Republican to Democrats, 59 to 45. Everything in the predicted market. And again, I'm not looking at the one that's influenced by some billionaire or whatever. This is a different market. It's breaking for Trump. Now, when I look at 538, I see a little bit of a different story here. So in 538, I see that many of the races are even. The president, Nevada, now again, 6 or 7 swing states are what's important. Even. Wisconsin, even. Pennsylvania, even. So that could break one way or the other. Michigan, Democrat +1. So that's breaking for Kamala. North Carolina, Republican +1. Georgia, Republican +2. Arizona, Republican +2. So it looks like Kamala is going to have to win all these evens in order to win, and that's just where we are. Okay, now we're a week away. A week is a long time still, and it could swing the other way between now and the end of the election, which is next Tuesday. But more people have voted now in early turnout voting, even in conservative states like South Carolina. The early turnout has been record high. So, we'll see how this all plays out. Last little bit, Darth Putin, the Democrat plan of denying Ukraine victory so the GOP can blame them for losing the war, is beginning to look flawed. I'll say. Okay, and in a week, we'll find out if Joe Biden is actually serious about supporting Ukraine, or if this was just an election thing, like he's not allowing Ukraine to do this because of an election coming up and not wanting to tilt the election, or if he's actually deterred by Putin. We'll find this out about a week from now. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.